Hello there, Koles here and welcome back to another video. With the recent release of Book of Boba Fett, as bad as it was, and the upcoming release of LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga in 2 days time, and the Obi-Wan Kenobi series being released next month, of course, on May the 4th. It has got me hyped about Star Wars. I loved Mandalorian Season 1 and 2, and especially the introduction, should I say, reintroduction of Boba Fett in Season 2 with some brilliant kick-ass scenes. Of course, the original trilogy did not do him any justice, especially in Return of the Jedi. Boba Fett was meant to be the most feared bounty hunter in the galaxy. And up until Return of the Jedi, I suppose you could conclude that most of his action took place off-screen. But the first real bit of action we see from him, and he gets his Ee3 Carbine cut in half by Luke, then wraps Luke up with his paracord grapple hook thingy, falls to the floor when the barge thing he's stood on, gets shot, and he just ragdolls to the floor. And then he takes a shot at Luke on the other barge skiff thing. He has one shot and shoots 5 meters above his head. And then gets launched into the side of a sail barge when, a blind Han Solo activates his jetpack by mistake by hitting it with a stick. And then, he hits the sail barge and basically ragdolls into the Sarlacc's mouth, which is, kind of ridiculous. I can only conclude that he was high as fuck on spice. And dripping bad in every sense of the word.
This is a spice dream.
I think this was the real reason he wanted to stop the Pike Syndicate's spice trade on Tatooine in Book of Boba Fett. One bad trip and he has to ruin the fun for everyone. Anyway, besides all that, he has always been a fan favourite for one simple reason. His mysteriousness. And the armour, of course, that also, makes him pretty epic. So I set off on a mission to make a pretty screen-accurate Boba Fett armour that is also functional. I say pretty screen-accurate, as his armour and helmet changed so much throughout the original trilogy, Mando Season 2, and in Book of Boba Fett, that I feel we have some leeway in the accuracy department. Let's say we'll make it, 90% accurate. And if you hadn't noticed already, and you have watched Mando Season 2 and the Book of Boba Fett, the repainted armour and helmet from Mando Season 2 isn't even the same as in Book of Boba Fett. Despite it occurring literally not long after Mando Season 2, the biggest issue I have is with the helmet sculpt change. The new shape, it's narrower and less bulky, and the dome on the top is smaller, which makes the dent look bigger. Or the dent is just bigger, I don't know. I wouldn't have minded a new helmet shape either, if it was meant to be a new helmet. I mean, hell, I just bought the Mando Season 2 re-armoured Black Series Boba Fett helmet, and then here we are in canon, they've changed it already. Anyway, as my plan is to make this armour functional, we first need to look at all the Boba Fett scenes from the movies and the shows to see exactly what the functions of his armour are. So yeah, let's go. So we're going to start with these scenes from Attack of the Clones with Jango Fett and Obi-Wan Kenobi. Obviously, Jango Fett's armour is passed down to Boba Fett, and the first function of his armour we see is the jetpack / rocket pack, something we probably aren't going to be able to do because, well, it's not really that possible with current technology. But the first weapon we see him use is the rocket from, the one that's integrated into his jetpack. Now we see another function here, the grappling hook, the paracord, fiber cord grapple hook, that we also see Boba Fett use in Return of the Jedi on Luke Skywalker. So now he's lost his jetpack and he gets kicked off the side by Obi-Wan Kenobi. And this is where we see the next function of his armour. It is the retractable blades, hidden blades, whatever you want to call them. And that is a feature that we never see Boba Fett use, even in Mando Season 2 and Book of Boba Fett. But I would assume that those blades are still in there. Although, if we actually look at how his hidden blades extend, you can kind of see that, well, there isn't actually room for them in the gauntlet. They're too long. Like, where do they actually fold up into? So that is going to make it tricky for sure. But I definitely think we can make some sort of retractable blades. Later on in the movie, at the Battle of Geonosis, we see Mace Windu put a lightsaber to Jango Fett's neck, who responds by setting him alight with his flamethrower. If we watch it again in slow motion, we see the flames come from one of the barrels on the side of his left gauntlet. A few moments later, we see him fly off into the arena to fight against Mace Windu, who's dropped his lightsaber. And he gets trampled by that big, whatever it's called, reek. That's the one. And yeah, we kind of all know how that ends. And now on to the original trilogy, and we have Boba's scenes in Return of the Jedi. We see him use his jetpack to land on the skiff. And then he tries to shoot Luke with his Ee3 Carbine, which he then cuts in half. Boba Fett then wraps him up with his fiber cord grapple. And then, yeah, we see Boba Fett just like ragdoll to the ground. Let's just forget about that bit. When he does eventually get up, he uses his gauntlet-mounted laser blaster thingy to shoot at Luke, and he obviously shoots miles above his head. Then he gets knocked into the Sarlacc pit by Han Solo. What you will notice here, if we watch him shooting his gauntlet in slow motion, take note of where the laser blast actually comes from. It comes from the bit that actually everyone thought was some kind of wrist-mounted rocket. Next, we get Boba Fett's return in Mandalorian Season 2. The first scenes that we see of him are, him just destroying stormtroopers with a gaffy stick. And then when he finally does put on his armour, we first see him throw some kind of grenade to blow up some stormtroopers. And he lands all suited up. We see he has a new pistol, and in his left gauntlet, he also has some kind of laser blaster. Like the one we see in the Return of the Jedi, except this time it is coming from like the double barrel side pod thing, not the thing that looks like a wrist rocket. We also see his knee launchers for the first time. That was the first time we've seen them being used. And he then again uses his gauntlet-mounted laser blaster. Now the thing is, if we go ahead and rewind this back to where he takes the shot from his wrist-mounted laser blaster, you will see it is a double shot. It is coming from both of the barrels on the side of his left-mounted gauntlet, not from the thing that looks like a wrist-mounted rocket, which is where the laser blast comes from in Return of the Jedi. Unless both shots came from one barrel, it also means that Boba Fett doesn't have a flamethrower like his father did. Carrying on with that scene from Mandalorian Season 2, Boba Fett has one more trick up his sleeve. When these stormtrooper transporters are flying off, he walks up towards them and he puts down his rangefinder and uses it as a targeting system to fire a jetpack missile at the transporters. Obviously he hits one of them and then it falls and crashes into the other. So the last scene we're going to look at is the finale of the Book of Boba Fett. Obviously, there are other kind of fight scenes, but this is the only one where he really kind of shows any of his suit's abilities. Obviously, they start off with the jetpacks here, both him and the Mandalorian. We see him using his Ee3 Carbine. Pretty good gun, but I don't really understand why they just stood out in the open without any cover. And the first weapon from the suit we see him use is his knee launcher once again to kill one of the pikes. And he's got his pistol back again. And thank God these guys have plot armor. They have literal plot armor made of Beskar. We see him using his knee rockets quite a bit there. And there is one final thing that we see Boba Fett use. Obviously, Mandalorian has his whistling birds. And Boba Fett, for the first time ever, uses his wrist-mounted rocket launcher. So if we watch it again in slow motion, we'll see that rocket fire from the launcher on his left gauntlet. Which pretty much confirms that it is, in fact, a rocket launcher and not a laser blaster like we see in Return of the Jedi. We once again see Boba Fett using his jetpack rocket launcher against those giant droideka things, which obviously was unsuccessful. Towards the end of the episode, he has a duel with Cad Bane and was kind of losing. He uses his wrist-mounted flamethrower on his left gauntlet there. And yeah, I mean, if you've watched the episode, you kind of know what happens. We don't need to see it again. Whilst editing this, I remembered two other scenes where he uses his armor's weapons. One of them was right at the start of the series, when he was escaping the Sarlacc pit, and he uses his wrist-mounted flamethrower. Although this time it appears to be on the left arm. If I replay this in slow motion, you can see that it is his left gauntlet, because that is where his grapple hook would usually come from. But now apparently it's also a flamethrower. And the very last scene we're going to look at is from an early episode of the Book of Boba Fett. And for some reason, Boba Fett decides to, launch a wrist-mounted rocket at these shields at like point-blank range, which just kind of blows him up. Honestly, his fighting here was pretty crappy. Why didn't he just use his jetpack, fly up over their shields and just, you know, shoot them with his knee launchers and things? I don't know. But anyway, he takes them out, and then we see him use his wrist-mounted rocket again in just a moment when he fires it at one of the assassins trying to escape. There we go. So yeah, I guess that means that he has multiple rockets on that left arm. I guess it's something like the Mandalorian's whistling bird, but it just has little tiny rockets in the cone thingy-majig. Once again, as I was editing, I remembered one other scene. So this is going to be the very, very last scene. And this is where Boba Fett fights Bo-Katan's sidekick that I don't even know the name of. She takes a swing at Boba Fett and then he just yeets her into a table. And then uses his grapple hook to grab her arm. So he still has his grapple hook here. And then she takes him down somehow. Let's just pretend that never happened. But then they both use their flamethrowers against each other. Note that Boba Fett is using the one on his right hand, not the main one on his left hand. I think at this point it is pretty much confirmed that he has a flamethrower on both arms. But for some reason Boba has 3 like gas pipes going to the right gauntlet. But I don't know why. Alright, so you might be wondering how the holy heck we are actually going to make functioning armor and weaponry. And I'm going to show you on this full body picture of Boba Fett from the Book of Boba Fett. And I guess annotate it. Obviously for the armor we'll use like metal sheet. And for the weaponry, obviously we can't actually make real explosives and firearms and things. These are going to be, well, pneumatic powered, spring powered, gas powered gadgets / weapons, I guess. We'll start from the bottom and make our way up. We have his knee rocket darts. Okay, so he used them a couple of times throughout Mandalorian Season 2 and the Book of Boba Fett. So for those, we probably have 3 or 4 options. My last video I made was about this ballistic dart launcher that I got from wish.com, and that is spring powered and pretty powerful, but obviously these are meant to be rockets, so we could either get some like really small like model rocket motors to fire them, or use something like flash cotton, putting them in the dart that fires, and you know, the combustion obviously creates a big pressure inside them which fires the dart. Obviously it would be cooler to actually have a dart that was rocket powered, like in the show. Alright, so the next part to look at is the right gauntlet. So it actually has 3 gas pipes going, like 3 hoses attaching onto this gauntlet. I'm not entirely sure why. Obviously Jango Fett had the hidden blades on it, and I'd like to put some hidden blades in this, which are probably going to require some sort of, you know, gearing system, and probably a solenoid or a servo motor to basically rotate the gears and extend the blades and be able to retract them again, obviously. He has a grapple hook launcher. Now we could make a pneumatic grapple hook launcher, but I'm kind of half tempted to make some sort of like, you know, stun gun taser, and have 2 darts that are attached to, like, you know, fine copper wire, which go to basically a high voltage generator, i.e. a taser. Because I think that would actually be probably more useful and functional. Because just imagine if Boba Fett had that on his grapple hook when he wrapped Luke in it, and then he just tased him. That, I mean, that would have been a lot more effective. We also saw in that scene in the Sarlacc pit from Boba Fett, he has a flamethrower in that right gauntlet. Now, we could use the spark from the taser to also make it a flamethrower. But then if we were going to do that, we would probably need to pressurize the propane, so that was the propellant for the taser darts, if that makes sense. Instead of using compressed air, using compressed propane. And then if we did it like that, then we could also have a flamethrower. And the next part is again on the right gauntlet, but on the kind of the top part, there is like 4 kind of spike looking things that come out the front of it. We've never seen him use them, but everyone kind of, I mean, online it just kind of says, you know, it's a dart launcher. So I'm going to try, well, I am going to implement that ballistic dart launcher into the gauntlet. Hopefully, you know, I can make it so it actually looks good and fits in well. And of course that ballistic dart launcher is spring powered, but it is, you know, pretty powerful still. Next of all, we have the rangefinder on his helmet. So we know Mando has thermal vision in his helmet, and I think, you know, Boba Fett could do with something like that. He also has his rangefinder, which he uses as a targeting system. Obviously, using it as a targeting system probably isn't going to be that realistic or useful, because I can't really make guided missiles, so I don't really have a purpose for it. We could make it a rangefinder, as in, you know, like a screen either in the antenna or in the helmet that shows the distance of whatever it is we're looking at. We could also put night or thermal vision in the helmet and have little like displays below the visor or something like that, or just above, or even to the sides. I was actually also thinking that it could be useful to have kind of a fisheye lens. Like, you don't actually get a very good view out of the helmet, and so your peripheral vision isn't great. Obviously a fisheye lens could help to improve that. The Mandalorian, on one of his gauntlets, I can't remember which one, also has like a little screen that sometimes displays like a radar dish going round, which I guess, you know, is telling him if there's anything around him. And I think, you know, doing something like that could also be pretty cool. It wouldn't be radio waves, but would use LiDAR, which is kind of the same, but laser. But it would be cool because then we could actually have like LiDAR imaging as well as thermal / night vision. If you have an iPhone, iPhones have a LiDAR sensor, and I think there is actually an app that's like LiDAR imaging. That's basically your phone sending out, you know, laser light, and then it bouncing off surfaces, and then your phone's processing it and converting it into imaging through different colours. So a bit like thermal imaging, but instead of temperature, it's going off distance. Alright, next part, again in the helmet. Mandalorian and Boba Fett seem to have like a voice amplifier thing in the helmet. When people wear those kind of helmets, you can't really hear them. So they must have some kind of amplifier speaker on the outside of the helmet that actually amplifies their voice. But it also has a bit of a voice changer in. I'm pretty sure you would have noticed. So actually putting a voice changer in would be pretty cool too. If we could put some kind of, communications in the helmet too, that would be pretty cool. That's not that important to me. But I did think it would be cool if we could do like a communications system like what the Dark Troopers have, or the Death Troopers, whatever they're called, in Rogue One, when it's kind of a scrambled voice that you hear. But I guess the other Death Troopers, their helmets, pick up that sound and like kind of de-scramble it. So they just hear the voice of the Death Trooper, not the scrambled words. Yeah, for the rangefinder, you can also use a LiDAR sensor. You can also kind of process all this with like a Raspberry Pi or, a microcontroller / computer thing like that. And that's going to be the same for the night and thermal vision, again, because you can plug in camera sensors and other kind of sensors into it and have them being displayed on a screen. Alright, next we have the left Gauntlet. This is the one that I've done the most work on so far. So obviously on the top is the thing that looks like a wrist rocket launcher, and what I'm planning to do on that is to kind of have like a round, like, well, it'll basically be a round metal mount that'll have, it'll probably just be a 3D printed version of the rocket, but we'll put a model rocket motor inside it and obviously wire it up so we can actually fire it. So I think that'll be pretty cool. Obviously it's not going to explode, but we're not actually trying to kill anyone here. Then on like the left side section where the flamethrower is on this gauntlet, there's also like another barrel, which is his blaster. Obviously in the scenes from the Mandalorian, it was a double barrel laser blaster thingy, and it didn't have a flamethrower, I don't think. So we're going to have obviously one barrel being a flamethrower and the other one being, well, not a laser blaster, but a laser. Eventually I will get a high powered laser, like a 2-watt laser or something like that, so it can actually burn stuff, and that'll be pretty cool. And then yeah, of course there's going to be a flamethrower. Obviously it's going to have a hose attached to it because obviously it needs to be supplied with gas to burn. And well, I'll get onto where the hose will attach to after. There's also like a series of like switches and buttons on these gauntlets, as well as like the keypad on the front of the left gauntlet. So I'm going to integrate all of those into the gauntlets too and have them, actually functioning and doing stuff. Alright, so this is probably the last part I will do, is his Ee3 Carbine Rifle. So that's either going to be we could either do that as just like a powerful laser, like 3-4 watts or something ridiculous, which obviously will burn stuff very easily, but it would also be very dangerous because, that kind of laser power is, well, even 2 watts is blinding you if you even like look at it at a wall without laser goggles on. The other option, which I kind of liked, is one that Hacksmith did a while back, and that was like for a plasma rifle that he built, Halo or something. And that was using induction heaters in the barrel to heat up some I don't even know how to say that. Ferrocerium, I don't know. Which is basically kind of like flint type stuff. It like produces sparks. And in his video, yeah, he launched it from like a pneumatic rifle that he made, and it just kind of fires like molten metal. It's just like sparks, and it looks pretty cool. Whether it'll be deadly, I don't know. Probably if you're right in front of it, it would probably burn you pretty bad. But I don't think it's going to shoot through you. Alright, next we've got obviously the armor which, as I've said, is going to be made of steel, like steel plating. I also did buy a little bit of Damascus steel, which it's like Waltz steel, which is what they made, you know, like samurai swords out of, like, you know, in ancient times, I guess. Well, yeah, because Beskar isn't actually real, so we can't actually use Beskar. Alright, now we'll have a look at, obviously, the backside of his armour, at his jetpack. Now, obviously, we can't actually make a functioning jetpack that looks like that, because, well, it's just not doable. You know, maybe in 20, 30 years' time when we, you know, miniaturize literal rockets. But yeah, I mean, model rockets, you know, they're not going to lift me. Obviously, there is real jetpack, but, you know, they cost a lot of money, and I don't really have that to spend. And also, it's just a jet. It's not actually it's not a rocket pack. It's never going to work being attached to your back like that either. It just wouldn't fly well. So anyway, without further ado, what we are going to do with it is, first of all, obviously he has the rocket on his jetpack, the missile. And so for that, what I'm thinking is we could have, you know, like a pneumatic launcher, you know, basically like a potato cannon with a model rocket motor as like the actual rocket. So we can ignite the rocket, launch it with a pneumatic launcher, and then it'll keep flying itself because it's got a model rocket inside. Obviously, again, it's not going to explode, but I think, you know, that would be pretty cool. We could put explosives in the end, you know, if we were actually building it for the military or trying to kill someone. But we're not. This is just to look cool, I guess. And then, obviously, back to, like, our hoses for the flamethrowers and stuff. Thinking in, like, the side pods of his jetpack, like, the bits that will be the rocket, because obviously they're, like, cylindrical shaped. They are going to house the tanks, the propane tanks for the flamethrowers, and also, you know, compressed air / CO2 tanks for, you know, pneumatic launched stuff. Yeah, and then so I guess the hoses are going to connect into the jetpack. Try and do it with like quick connect gas hose connections. So obviously you can just, you know, clip it on and off the back the jetpack. Yeah, and I think that'll work quite nicely. I have done some work on this so far. I've done some work on the left gauntlet and I've put a laser in, although it's not a burning laser, and I've also made a flamethrower. I'm currently working on the right gauntlet, trying to put the ballistic dart launcher inside of it. So yeah, I'll show you that stuff in the next video, because this one's already getting quite long. So I was just kind of informing you on what my plans are. And we're also going to play some LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga at some point soon. So yeah, make sure to stick around, subscribe, and like this video if you want to see this project unfold. Yeah. Alright. Sweet. Goodbye. Auf Wiedersehen.